Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we're going to be looking at the 2017 CSEC paper for textile clothing and fashion. If you would have looked at my previous video, you would have noticed that we started that paper and did question 1. So this is just a follow-up video. We're working on question 2 right now. So if you find this helpful, like, share, etc., etc., you know the drill. All right, so let's get into it. Question 2 asks us to define and give one example for each of the following terms as it relates to color. Conveniently, I have a lovely way to describe and define the terms as well as an example to go with it, because this is what our question requires of us. So our hue, that's our pure color or elements of the color wheel with no tint or shade added. So basically, you can interchange the terms hue and color, right? Tints are the mixture of a hue with white. Shades would be the mixture of a hue with black. And even though they did not ask, it would be lovely for you to know that tones would be a mixture of your hue with gray. And we're going to use red as an example for the hue, all right? Because it is the pure color as it appears on the color wheel, right? A tint of red would be pink. Let's say we were to add 1 unit of white to our red, we would get pink. And as we add more units of white, we get lighter and lighter tints of pink. Yeah. If we were to add black to our hue, which is red, whether it's 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units, as we go along, we would get darker and darker shades of red, which would give us something along the lines of burgundy. All right. So basically, let's go back to our question. We know what the hue is. Hue is the pure color, right, as it exists on the color wheel. An example of that could be red. A shade of red would be burgundy, and a tint of red would be pink, all right? Shade is your hue with black added to it, and tint is your hue with white added to it, all right? So that gives us our 6 marks. Moving on. A blue cotton shirt, let me make sure you get that. A blue cotton shirt has a large white spot on the chest from damage caused by bleach. You want to use embroidery to create a multicolored floral pattern to cover the spot. Explain 2 factors that should be considered when choosing the embroidery thread to create the pattern for the shirt. One of the first things that stood out to me in this question would be the colors, right? Yes, you want to make a multicolored floral pattern to cover this spot, but you want to consider the color scheme that you're using, all right? Also, you would want to ensure that the fibers of your embroidery thread, which you will now be using on this shirt, would respond in the same way to laundering as the fibers of your shirt. So basically, if they can be of similar fiber content, that would be lovely. Now, you might wonder why there are actually different types of embroidery thread. Although you probably commonly come into contact with cotton embroidery thread, there's also silk embroidery thread, there's metallic embroidery thread, there's rayon embroidery thread, and I'm pretty sure the list goes on, right? So you want to ensure that the fiber content of your embroidery thread matches up with the fiber content of your shirt, because imagine if you were to launder this shirt and your shirt is responding in a different way to the laundering than your embroidery patch, it can create other problems. All right, so you want to consider the color scheme or the colors of the embroidery thread that you're going to use, as well as the fiber content of the embroidery thread that you're going to use. A pair of linen trousers has an old tea stain on the front of one of the legs. Clearly describe the procedure that should be used to remove the stain, which will not cause further damage to the trousers, all right? This brings us to our laundering process. And part of the laundering process involves stain removal. Sometimes we often think that, okay, once there's a stain, the first thing you want to do is probably just bleach it. You cannot just bleach every stain. There's some things that would not get out from by using bleach, and there are some things that some issues that would actually be worsened if you just use regular bleach. So here's a look at a stain removal chart. You can see that there are different ways to remove different stains. You would have stains like blood stains, chewing gum and wax stains. You want to make sure you harden with ice and scrape off. Chocolate stains, you want to make sure you pre-wash that with a stain remover, etc., etc. There are a host of different methods for removing different stains. So that's something that you might want to get acquainted with, because should you encounter stain removal on your exam, you want to be able to know, you want to be able to handle the question well. Based on my research, you are to apply a few drops of vinegar or lemon juice and leave it to sit for a few moments. Most times when you are working on removing a stain, there's some sort of pre-treatment that takes place. So this would be that pre-treatment. Then you want to go in with additional treatment if that first treatment does not work. So going in with bleach, if it's absolutely necessary, would also be helpful. So that's the second step I have. But I should also note that you're not just going to be using any kind of bleach. You want to use a colored bleach, since this trouser is cream. Now, if you use regular chlorine bleach and you remove the stain, you might also be removing the color of the pants, because bleach removes color, right? So you want to make sure that you have a bleach for colored clothing so that you do not remove the color, which is a cream color, from that linen trousers. All right, so once you've gone in with your bleach, then you can proceed to wash with an enzyme detergent. And the reason why you wash with enzyme detergent is because enzymes actually break down what causes the stain. So it's one thing to get rid of the color, but the enzymes actually break down that stain and help to remove the stain from the article. All right. So your first step would be to apply a few drops of vinegar or lemon juice. And then your second step would be to go in with a few drops of bleach, colored bleach in this case, as necessary. And then your last step would be to wash with an enzyme detergent. And you must give special care to that spot that has the stain. All right. So once you have explained your 3 steps, you will get your 6 marks for that question. So question two was basically a short question, but once you would have handled that as detailed as possible, you get your full 16 marks.